Hi everyone, my name is Dinithi and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna recommend some high fantasy or epic fantasy books for you guys to read. This was a recommendation came from one of you guys who asked me to do a video of this sort, so here you go. I'm doing it for you because I want to make sure that when you come to my channel you get recommendations for good books, some things you want to pick up, something that you like or something you've already heard of and you just want to talk about it. So these are a few books that I've read and I will recommend to you guys, which are high fantasy / epic fantasy. Right, the first one I'm going to recommend is the Popular series by R.F. Kuang. This is a 5-star read. There are 3 books in the series called, the first one is The Poppy War, then the second one is The Dragon Republic, the third one is The Burning God. The series follows this girl called Rin who she's of like a really low class in I can't remember where they live, in a world called Nikara. So the Popular series is inspired by the Sino-Japanese War and the Opium Wars, so there's a lot of similarities to what went on in those wars, but also it has a fantastical element to it because Rin has the power to summon the fire god. She passes this test called the Keju where people with the highest grades get to go to this prestigious military academy that's in the capital of Nikara. So she passes the test. She's like the one who has the highest points from her province, so she gets to attend this school. My memory is a little foggy in terms of like the years, but towards like maybe the end of her first year or the second year, the war starts with the Mughals who are like the Japanese army. So these people who are in the academy are called to the front lines to fight the war. So things start from there. It is a story that spans through 3 books, so you can't really judge the first book on its own. You have to read all 3 together, and I highly recommend you read all of them in one go, or maybe have like 1 or 2 books in between these stories, because you have to be in the world to get like the full effect of everything that's happening, because you have to remember there's a lot. With high fantasy and epic fantasy, you're given a lot of information and not a lot is explained to you. You have to figure them out as you go, which is what I love about these types of books. Like the writer trusts their audience to be smart enough and to pay attention to the story to piece everything together. So The Poppy War is a great recommendation. I absolutely love it. It's a book that I want to reread again, which I haven't been able to do so far. The characters are amazing. They are they are very complex. They're very flawed. You don't have any morally good characters, maybe except for maybe Katai, but Rin as a main character is one of my favorite female characters that I have read, and she is resilient, she's strong, she's brave, but she's also a person driven by anger and frustration, and you see that throughout the books. Like, she does not get better, and the writer does not shy away from letting us know, the consequences of her actions, of like her behavior, of what she does to other people. So she is your favorite character, but she's also somebody who will make you really angry and depressed. This book is very heavy, okay? So like there are a lot of trigger warnings for the Poppy War, and I highly recommend that you look them up before you start. And there are like a few chapters here that I know is very gruesome and a lot of people find difficult to read. So bear in mind all of that before you start reading. But yeah, this is how a story about war should be written. It is not romanticized. It is in no way shielded from like the futility of war, the brutality, and there is no winner when it comes to wars. It's just chaos and murder and blood. It's just horrendous, and she does not shy away from showing us that. Right, the next book is a no surprise in the channel. And that is The City of Brass, the About trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm currently in the middle of a reread, so I have been tabbing because Inosh and Aisha we're hosting a About read along over on Instagram, and the live show will be on YouTube, and we're gonna talk about it then at the end of the month. So for the month of June, we're going to read City of Brass, and for July, it's Kingdom of Copper, and August, it is Empire of Gold. So if you want to join, you can. We also have a Discord that I'll link down below. You can join if you want to read along with us. But yes, City of Brass or like the Deoba trilogy is the next recommendation. So this also has a female main character called Nahari, and she is you start the story in Cairo, where she is a con artist. She uses her ability to understand any language to her advantage into like conning people, and she has this magical ability to heal people and to diagnose people without ever having to do a proper diagnosis or like a proper test. She can touch somebody and understand why what's happening inside their body. So she diagnoses someone who is pregnant and someone who has cancer. So that's essentially that's how she makes a living by conning people and telling everybody that she's a witch. In one of her cons, she kind of does this thing called a sa. So that is where you summon a jinn who is essentially a demon, and the idea is you tell this demon to like stop possessing the person that they're possessing. She doesn't believe that this stuff is real, but she knows that these are what people believe, and she's kind of using that against them. And she does this thing and she makes a big deal out of it, and she uses a language that she only knows how to speak, but she doesn't know how she knows it. So she uses that language and she calls upon a jinn, and lo and behold, it's actually a real summon. And she ends up summoning this jinn who tells her that she's a descendant of a long lost line of magical healers, and she is a deva, who are magical beings created from the different elements on earth. So like fire, water, air, and shit, I can't remember something. So then this jinn, he takes her to Devabad, which is like the magical city where all these devas live. And yeah, that's all I can tell you without spoiling anything. But what I like about this story is just, I have so many videos relating to the Deoba trilogy. I will mention it in my favorites or my last year's favorite. I even have a vlog where I read it. This book gets better every time I talk about it and every time I read it. It's just, look at all these steps. Like there's so many foreshadowing in the book for like the entire series. So like reading it a second time is actually, the experience is much better because you know what happens. But I highly recommend you pick this up. These characters will stay with you forever. Like the complexities of their nature and what they believe in, they are very distinct to one another, and you are shown a lot of things that they believe in and what goes on in their head, so that even though you may not agree with it or you may see a different point of view from somebody else that you like, you understand both sides because you know where they're coming from. And it's such a great read. I don't want to say a lot because I will be talking about this in our live show, but essentially this is it's a magical story. It's very bloody at times. It's also fun and very light-hearted. So you have this really cool banter. Like Nari is a really lovable main character. So you're never alone in this world. She's always there to like keep things chill and calm. You know, she's a healer, so she can do that. And one other thing I like so much about this story is it is set in the Middle East. So there's a lot of mentions to like Muslim traditions and Islamic beliefs. So, and from reading this book I did learn a lot, which is an experience that you don't normally get with books. And I really want to read more of that nature. And I know the Stardust Thief is also like a new release is coming out, or maybe it's already out, that is inspired by the Thousand Nights. Then I really want to pick that up and give it a try, because it's very rare that you read books of this nature, and I must say, like, this is incredible. It is a masterpiece. Right, the next one is something that I may not have mentioned in a while, but I did talk about this before, and it is House Smoke by H.M. Long. First of all, yeah, this is a real cover, and the second book is absolutely gorgeous as well. So this is essentially a story about warrior priestesses, and it also has a female main character, and she is a priestess to the goddess of war, and she has the power to turn her enemies' bones into dust. So she's a very powerful priestess. So the story starts with her paying penance for not following her goddess's orders to kill this traveler. And while she's at the shrine, which is like I think it's in the mountains, and her village is at the bottom of the mountain, something like that. And while she's there with her husband, her entire village gets slaughtered by these clans from the north and the south, and there's a war raging she is tasked with finding this traveler and setting things right. Essentially, she has to get him. So that's essentially the premise of the story. This is a very different type of fantasy because this is, first of all, this is a standalone. There are books in this series where you don't really have to, they're not connected, they're in the same world and it follows the same character, but this is essentially a standalone book. You don't really have to continue with the series, or you don't have to read this book to start the second. So the story has this war between like the old gods and the new, and it is very spiritual. So you have a lot of discussions related to like God and the spirits and the goddesses. I really like that in this book. Normally I'm not a fan of those type of stories, but in this story it works because essentially she is a priestess, so you kind of have to take a deep dive into like religion and the spiritual beliefs, everything that makes them do what they do. And I know a lot of people don't talk about this book, and I'm not sure why. It's nowhere perfect to like the books that I talked about before, but it is up there on my list. I'm definitely gonna read the second one as well. So pick this up if you want to. It is a great book, and I mean, look at the cover. Like, I will buy this book just for this cover. It's beautiful. Okay, next up we have another one of my favorite books. Wow, the one that I finished very recently, and that is The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. If I had to pick a book that has a great story, incredible characters, brilliant writing, and a very satisfying end, it would be this book. It would be The Greenbone Saga. I cannot put into words how good this story is, and I can't tell you a lot about this story without taking away your enjoyment of the book, because you kind of have to go into this without knowing a lot, and you don't really have to know a lot anyway, because part of the fun of reading these books is you figuring out what's happening and your attachment to these characters, which you don't realize is happening when you're reading it. But when things start to unfold, you are terrified and you just don't know what's gonna happen to these people, and you realize how much you care about them and how much you want them to be okay. And they're not okay. Like, these Fonda Lee is just like R.F. Kuang. She does not shy away from putting these characters in terrible situations and forcing them to make really hard choices which have harrowing consequences at times. This sets in the island of Kekon. Now, Kekon has this very rare mineral called jade, which gives people incredible strength. So like agility, speed, enhanced hearing, and incredible strength. But there are only few people in this world who can actually harness the power of jade and use these powers, and they are called the Greenbones. Now just because it's only them who can harness the power doesn't mean that jade is only used by the Greenbones, right? The Greenbones are who run this country, and you have two clans, the No Peak clan and the Mountain clan, who have been at odds like for years now. That is essentially the setup of the story. But also you have people who smuggle jade out of the country and give it to like the rest of the world to use it as they please, and jade is essentially a character in its own. So you see how people use jade in so many different ways. They don't necessarily have to wear it. They have found different methods of using it without actually having that power to use it. But essentially Greenbones are the natural wearers of jade. So that is the premise of the story, and what happens, what makes this stand out is the No Peak clan and the cast of characters you have in it, as well as the Mountain. But you don't necessarily see a lot of the Mountain clan except for the Horn, who is like the leader. In the No Peak clan you have the Call family, which is the one who runs it, and you have Hilo, you have Lan, you have Shay, Andy. Those are like the main characters, but you have so many others. I'm not gonna name them. So this is very similar to the Peaky Blinders. If you watch the Peaky Blinders, this story is very easy for you to grasp and you understand what's happening. And just like Peaky Blinders, it is all in the characters. It's just, and their relationships. Like, my God. Oh, you have Wen. I completely forgot about Wen. Wen is very important. And one other thing about this book is that again, just like the Popio, you have to read it as one epic saga. And Jade City and Jade War and Jade Legacy, those are the 3 books you have, and they span over decades. Okay, it is a very long, drawn out war, and they play the long game. So you kind of have to be in this world, you kind of have to remember things, because a lot of the things that are discussed in the first book will only have consequences or come to fruition in the 3rd book. And if you don't understand, if you don't remember what happens, you kind of, the shock or like the enjoyment of that one incident or what happens, it loses its meaning, especially for certain characters that you just wait for so long to have, like, I don't know, for them to die off, or to have like a very satisfying ending to all the shit that they've done. It comes to fruition in the last book. So if you don't know who these people are, if you don't know how it starts, it kind of loses that enjoyment, right? So I don't have to tell you, like, when you're reading this type of books, you have to be in the moment, you have to pay attention. They're not easy to read. Like, you have to put a little bit of effort into it, but the payoff is so much better than any other young adult fantasy you will read, because it is much better. Like, anyway, the genre, because like I've mentioned before, with young adult, the genre kind of limits you with with certain things that you can't just do in that genre. But with epic fantasy, adult fantasy, you are free to do whatever you want. And if you use that tool well, you get books like the Greenwood Saga or the Poppy or the Babad. So this is a great book. Pick it up, and you will have a fun time. And finally, I want to talk about the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is called the Broken Earth trilogy, and I've only read the first book so far, so I can't talk about like the rest of the series. But I know for a fact that this is a book that I would recommend to anybody. You can consider this a standalone too, but also it is one book in a larger plot. So this book is so confusing, okay? Even to this day, I am very confused as to what's happening, because I kind of have to read it again to fully understand what I read. You have these seasons, and every 500 years or something, you have the end of the world. So the world ends, you start it up again, civilizations span, and you grow, and then again the world dies again in a new season. How the world ends is with natural disasters, specifically earthquakes, and there are people who can control these earthquakes, right? And our main character is Esun, and she is somebody who can control earthquakes, but she's also at the beginning of the story, witnesses the death of her son, and her daughter is missing, and she goes on a quest to find the daughter. And that is all I'll say, okay? I don't want to give anything away. So this is a story that has a really great ending and a great twist, right? Which, again, you don't have to wait till the end to find out, because a lot of stuff happens after it is revealed. Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes you can't, but just forget about it when you're reading it. Just read the book, and you don't have to. It will be revealed to you eventually, so you're not going to gain anything from trying to guess it. Or it's not something that you should it's not something that you should put your full attention to, trying to figure out this twist. Just read the book, and it will be revealed to you when it's revealed. Something I notice with people, especially when it comes to like horrors, or like if you know there's a twist coming and everybody's like talking about it, you feel rewarded, and you feel like you've achieved something when you guess that twist or the ending or whatever it is. Personally, for me, I don't really care about it. If I guess it, then fine. If I don't, that's fine too. My reading enjoyment is not dependent on whether or not I guess the plot twist or like the ending, whatever it is, because like I always say, as long as the story is good, it really shouldn't matter what that plot twist is, because the writer should depend on that to tell the story. N.K. Jemisin is a master at her craft. So again, she is very smart, and she expects you to be smart to understand the story. So again, this is an acquired taste, but I think you should give it a try and decide for yourself if this is for you or not. But her writing is fantastic. It is so effortlessly brilliant, when you're reading it, every word, every sentence is carefully thought out, and it also hints you at a larger plot or like a larger world and a larger conflict. So, and the characters have a bigger role to play than you think, and it will be revealed to you as the story goes on. I really liked it. I want to continue on with this series. I want to pick up the second book. I'm just, you know, waiting for that right time. So those are the books that I'm going to recommend that I have read, and I can tell you for a fact that are really good and you will enjoy them. But also I want to mention a few books that are on my TBR and I've heard great things about, but I just haven't gotten to them yet. One is the Book of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. You have 4 books in the series, starting with Senlin Ascends, and I've heard wonderful things about it. And also The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is also a fantasy reader's favorite. And then you have Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. It's a massive series that I just haven't found the time to get to yet, but it's also on my list. And also The Ninth Reign. I'm not sure if it's a series or a standalone, but again, I want to get to that. And then finally, The Pariah by Anthony Ryan, which again, I've heard good things about, so you might want to check them out. These are all good recommendations that I've heard from a lot of people on BookTube, Bookstagram, Book Talk, everywhere. Alright, that is the end of the video. I hope you like these recommendations. I hope you got some books that you want to pick up. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, because I do make videos every Sunday and the occasional video on Tuesday. And if you want to see more of this content, please subscribe. That will mean a lot. And I hope you're here for the long run. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you soon with a new video.